I stole from my dying grandmother, and I'm the only one in my family who knows what she was really hiding in that safe. My grandmother had maybe 3 weeks left when my mom asked me to go check on her house. Grandma was in hospice by then, completely out of it on morphine, and Mom was paranoid about pipes freezing or something breaking while the house sat empty. I had a key because I used to water her plants last summer. The house smelled like old coffee, and that specific grandma smell of lavender soap mixed with dust. I walked through checking windows and making sure the heat was on. Her bedroom looked exactly the same. Floral bedspread, the TV remote on her nightstand, reading glasses folded next to a half-finished crossword puzzle. That's when I saw the safe. It was in her closet behind a bunch of coats I'd pushed aside looking for I don't even know what. Just a small black safe built into the wall. I'd never noticed it before. The door was slightly open, like maybe an inch, and I could see cash inside. I'm not going to pretend I'm some good person here. I was broke. My car needed new tires, and my landlord was breathing down my neck about rent being late again. I stood there for probably 5 minutes just staring at it. Grandma wasn't going to need money anymore. She barely knew what year it was at that point. I pulled the safe door open. There were stacks of 20s and 50s rubber banded together. Had to be at least $4,000 just sitting there. I took 2 stacks of 20s, $800, shoved them in my jacket pocket and closed the safe door most of the way like I'd found it. My hands were shaking when I locked up the house. I paid my rent, got the tires, bought groceries without checking my account balance first for the first time in months. I felt like garbage about it, but also I didn't give the money back, so Grandma died 2 weeks later. The funeral was small. My mom and her sister Carol cried a lot. We did the whole thing at the hospice chapel and then went back to Grandma's house to start sorting through her stuff. My Aunt Carol found the safe first. She called everyone into the bedroom all excited, talking about how organized Mom was keeping cash for emergencies. When she pulled the door open fully, there was still money in there. Maybe $3,000 left. My mom cried again, saying Grandma was always so careful with money and this would help with funeral costs. But then Carol pulled out this brown envelope from the very back of the safe. It was sealed. She opened it right there and her face went completely white. She didn't say anything, just stared at whatever was inside. My mom grabbed it from her. She read it. Then she looked at Carol and said, "We need to talk about this alone." They kicked me and Danny out of the room. I sat in the kitchen for 40 minutes listening to them argue through the door. Couldn't make out words, but my mom's voice kept getting higher and Carol kept saying something sharp back. At one point, something hit the wall. When they came out, both of them looked like they'd been punched. Mom's eyes were red and puffy. Carol's jaw was clenched so tight I thought her teeth would crack. Neither of them would look at each other. Carol left without saying goodbye. My mom sat at the kitchen table with her head in her hands. I asked what was in the envelope. She said it was family business and I was too young to understand. I'm 26. The next day, my mom called me asking if I'd been in Grandma's house before she died. I lied and said yeah once to check the pipes like she asked. She asked if I touched anything. I said no. She went quiet for a long time and then said okay and hung up. I went back to that house 3 days later. I still had the key. Nobody had changed the locks yet. The safe was completely empty now. Even the money that was left was gone. But there was a sticky note attached to the inside of the safe door in handwriting I didn't recognize. It said, "Check the garage freezer." I went to the garage. The big chest freezer Grandma kept in there was unplugged and defrosting. Water was pooling underneath it on the concrete. I opened the lid. Under some frozen bags of peas and ancient meat wrapped in butcher paper, there was a plastic bin. Inside the bin were notebooks. Page after page of names, dates, and dollar amounts in my grandmother's perfect handwriting. Hundreds of entries going back decades. Each entry had a name and then completed written next to it. The most recent entry was dated 3 months ago. The name was my dad's. Next to it said $15,000. Carol. My dad died in a car accident 3 months ago. Everyone said the brakes just failed. I found myself staring at the notation when I heard Aunt Carol's voice behind me say, "You weren't supposed to find that." I spun around so fast I nearly knocked the plastic bin out of the freezer. Carol was standing in the doorway between the garage and the house. Her arms were crossed over her chest. She was wearing this expensive-looking cream-colored sweater that probably cost more than my car payment. Her face was completely blank. Not angry. Not scared. Just empty. "Aunt Carol?" My voice came out weird. Thin. "I was just looking for—" "Stop." She held up one hand. "Don't embarrass yourself by lying. You found the notebooks. I can see them in your hands right now." I looked down. I was still holding one of them. The one with my dad's name in it. My fingers were gripping it so tight my knuckles had gone white. "What is this?" I asked. "What did Grandma do?" Carol walked into the garage slowly. She stopped about 5 feet away from me and just stood there looking at the freezer like it was an old friend she hadn't seen in years. "Your grandmother," she said carefully, "was a very resourceful woman." "That's not an answer." "No, it's not." She reached into her purse and pulled out a pack of cigarettes. Lit one. "I didn't even know she smoked." "How much did you read?" "Enough to see my dad's name. And your name next to $15,000. And the word completed. I swallowed hard. My dad's brakes failed 3 months ago. Carol took a long drag on her cigarette. Blew the smoke toward the ceiling. "Yes, they did." "Are you telling me—" I couldn't finish the sentence. The words got stuck somewhere between my brain and my mouth. "I'm not telling you anything," Carol said. "I'm asking you a question. What do you think you know?" I think my grandmother kept records of something. Names and money. Going back decades. And I think my dad's name being in there 3 months ago with completed next to it means something really bad. Carol nodded slowly, like a teacher watching a student finally understand a difficult math problem. Your grandmother started this business in 1978, she said. I was 16 years old. Your mother was 14. We didn't know about it for years. Not until we were adults. Not until your grandfather died and she needed help. What business? Carol looked at me then. Really looked. Her eyes were the same pale blue as my mom's, but there was something cold in them. Something I'd never noticed before at family dinners and birthday parties and Christmas mornings. Problem solving, she said. People came to your grandmother with problems. Husbands who wouldn't stop hitting them. Business partners who were stealing. Sons who were hurting their children. Problems the law couldn't fix or wouldn't fix or would make worse if they tried. My stomach dropped through the floor. Grandma was a... Don't say it out loud. Carol cut me off sharply. Names have power. Words have power. Your grandmother understood that better than anyone. She killed people? She solved problems. Carol's voice was ice. There's a difference. No, there isn't. I stepped back until I hit the edge of the freezer. That's murder. She was a murderer. For money. Carol finished her cigarette and crushed it under her heel on the concrete. She was a widow with 2 daughters to raise in 1972. Your grandfather left her nothing but debt and a house with a leaking roof. She did what she had to do to survive. And then she kept doing it because she was good at it and people needed her services. Services. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're standing here telling me my grandmother was a contract killer and you're calling it services. I'm standing here telling you the truth because you found the notebooks and I'd rather you hear it from me than piece it together wrong. Carol crossed her arms again. Your grandmother is dead. Nothing in those notebooks can hurt her now, but it can hurt a lot of other people who are still alive, including your mother, including me, including you. What does that mean? It means you need to decide right now what kind of person you are. Carol took a step closer. Those notebooks contain the names of every client your grandmother ever worked with, every problem she ever solved. Do you understand what that information is worth? Do you understand what people would do to get their hands on it? I looked down at the notebook in my hands again. My dad's name stared back at me. Reginald Foley. Completed. $15,000. Carol. My dad, I said slowly. You paid Grandma to kill my dad. Carol's expression didn't change. Your father was not a good man. He was my father. He was a lot of things. Carol's voice stayed perfectly level. He was my sister's husband. He was your father. He was also beating your mother so badly she had to wear long sleeves in July. He broke 3 of her ribs last Christmas. Did you know that? Did you notice how she couldn't take a deep breath for 2 months? How she winced every time someone hugged her? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I tried to remember Christmas. Mom had seemed tired, quiet. She'd left early. Said she wasn't feeling well. Your mother came to me in January, Carol continued. She was desperate. The police wouldn't help. They never do when it's domestic. She tried leaving once and he found her and put her in the hospital. Told everyone she'd fallen down the stairs. And you believed it. Everyone believed it because your father was charming and successful. And no one wants to think the worst about people they know. Mom wouldn't, she would never. She didn't. Carol cut me off. She came to me crying and asked if there was anything I could do. And I told her yes. Because there was. You used Grandma. I used the family business. Carol said it like it was nothing. Like she was talking about borrowing a lawnmower. Your grandmother was retired by then, but she still had contacts. People who owed her favors. It cost $15,000 and took about 6 weeks to arrange. Your father's brake lines were cut, and he went off the highway doing 75 on his way to work. It was quick. He didn't suffer, which is more mercy than he ever showed your mother. I felt sick. Actually physically sick. I dropped the notebook and barely made it to the corner of the garage before I threw up. Breakfast. Coffee. All of it came back up while Carol stood there watching me like I was mildly inconvenient. When I finally straightened up, wiping my mouth on my sleeve, she was still in the exact same position. Arms crossed. Face blank. Are you finished? She asked. My mom knows? She knows you did this? Your mother asked me to do this. Carol's voice was patient now, like she was explaining something simple to a child. She didn't want to know the details. She still doesn't. That's how this works. The client never knows exactly how or when. They just know the problem will be solved. So she just paid you to make my dad disappear and went on with her life like nothing happened? She paid me to save her life. Carol stepped over my mess on the floor without looking down. And yes, she went on with her life. What else was she supposed to do? She had 2 children and a mortgage and a job that barely covered the bills. She couldn't afford to fall apart. Neither could you. I was at his funeral. My voice cracked. I gave a eulogy. I talked about what a great father he was. And he would have killed your mother eventually if we hadn't stopped him. Carol reached down and picked up the notebook I dropped. That's the thing about men like your father. They escalate. It never gets better. It only gets worse until someone ends up dead. We just made sure it was him and not your mother. I stared at my aunt. This woman, who'd been at every birthday party, every graduation, who'd given me a $100 check every Christmas since I was born with a little smiley face drawn on the memo line, who'd driven me to the emergency room when I broke my arm falling off my bike at 13 because my mom was working and my dad was quote-unquote too busy. How long? I asked. How long have you been doing this? Helping your grandmother? Carol tucked the notebook under her arm. Since I was 22. She needed someone she could trust to handle the business side. I was good with numbers, with planning. with details. And Mom? Your mother was never involved. Carol said it firmly. She knew about the business. She couldn't not know after she moved back home when you were 3. But she never participated. Never wanted to. She just looked the other way and accepted that our family had unconventional income sources. Unconventional? I laughed again. That weird, hollow laugh. That's what you call murder for hire? Carol's expression finally changed. Just a little. A slight tightening around her eyes. I call it justice. The system fails people every day. Women who get beaten. Children who get abused. Whistleblowers who get silenced. Your grandmother gave people an option when they had no other options. She wasn't some monster in a basement. She was a 73-year-old woman who played bridge on Tuesdays and made the best pecan pie in the county. And she also happened to have solved over 200 problems during her career. 200. The number hit me like a physical blow. 200 people. Dead. Because my grandmother decided they should be. The notebooks, I said. You said people would do anything to get them. What people? The clients. Some of them are powerful. Rich. Politicians. Business owners. People who have everything to lose if it came out that they hired someone to solve their problems permanently. Carol glanced at the freezer. And then there are the families of the problems. Sons and daughters and spouses who never knew why their loved one suddenly died. Never suspected anything. But if those notebooks got out, if they saw their name connected to money and the word completed, some of them would want answers. Revenge. Justice of their own. So what do we do with them? Carol looked at me sharply. We? You're telling me all this for a reason. You didn't have to. You could have just taken the notebooks and left. I never would have known. I wiped my mouth again. The taste of vomit was still bitter on my tongue. But you told me. So what do you want? Carol was quiet for a long moment. She turned the notebook over in her hands, looked at the cover like she was reading something only she could see. Your grandmother's been out of the business for 8 years, she said finally. Since her stroke, I've been handling the archival work, making sure the records stayed secure, making sure the right people got paid and the wrong people stayed quiet. Archival work. I shook my head. You people have a word for everything. Your grandmother left instructions in her will, not the public one that the lawyer has, a private one that only I knew about. Carol looked at me again. She wanted the notebooks destroyed, all of them, burned to ash and scattered somewhere no one would ever find them. She said the business died with her, and the past should stay buried. Okay, so burn them. It's not that simple. Carol reached into her purse again. This time she pulled out a folded piece of paper. Your grandmother had one final client, someone who came to her right before she went into hospice, someone she couldn't turn down, someone she made a promise to. I thought you said she was retired. She was, but this was different. This was personal. Carol unfolded the paper and held it out to me. This was family. I took the paper. It was a printed email. Short. Just a few lines. The sender's address was blocked out with black marker, but the message was clear. The problem is getting worse. I can't wait anymore. I know you're sick, but I need your help. Please. You're the only one who can fix this. I'll pay whatever it takes. The signature at the bottom made my blood run cold. It was signed Ellen. My mother's name. What is this? My voice was barely a whisper. What problem? Dad is already dead. Carol took the paper back from me, folded it carefully, tucked it back in her purse. Your grandmother accepted the job before she went to hospice. She took a retainer, made a plan. But then she got worse faster than anyone expected and she couldn't follow through. Follow through on what? Solving your mother's second problem. I felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. Like everything I'd ever known about my family was sliding away into some dark place I couldn't see. Who? I asked. Who does Mom want dead? Carol met my eyes, held my gaze, didn't blink. You have an uncle, she said. Your father's brother, Warren. He lives about 40 minutes from here in a nice house with a big fence and a lot of security cameras. He's been sending your mother letters since your father's funeral. Threatening letters. He knows. He doesn't have proof, but he knows something was wrong about the accident. About the timing. About everything. And he's been making your mother's life hell trying to get her to confess. I knew Uncle Warren. Sort of. He'd come to the funeral but stayed in the back. Hadn't talked to anyone. He and my dad had been close when they were young but had some kind of falling out years ago. I'd only met him a handful of times growing up. What kind of letters? I asked. The kind that make it very clear he'll go to the police if your mother doesn't give him what he wants. What does he want? Money. The life insurance payout from your father's death. All of it. Plus the house. Plus half of everything else. Carol's voice was matter of fact. He's been bleeding your mother dry for months. She's already given him most of her savings. That's why she asked your grandmother for help. She couldn't take it anymore. So she hired Grandma to kill her own brother-in-law? She hired your grandmother to solve a problem that was destroying her life. Carol shrugged. The method was never her concern. I leaned against the wall of the garage. My legs felt weak, like they might give out at any second. This is insane, I said. This is completely insane. You're telling me my mother hired my grandmother to kill 2 people and I never knew anything about any of it? Your mother is a victim. Carol's voice hardened. She was a victim of your father for 15 years, and now she's a victim of his brother. She didn't want this. She didn't choose this. She just wanted to survive. There are other ways to survive. She could go to the police. Get a restraining order, move away. She tried all of that. Carol looked tired suddenly. For the first time since she'd walked into this garage, she looked her age. The police said threatening letters weren't enough to press charges. The restraining order was denied because Warren never made direct threats of violence. And she can't move because she can't sell the house because your father never put her name on the deed and Warren is contesting the estate in probate court. I didn't know any of that. Of course you didn't. Your mother didn't want to burden you. You have your own problems. Your own life. Carol gestured at me. You think she doesn't know about your job situation? Your car? Your rent? She knows. She didn't say anything because she didn't want you to worry about her when you had your own things to deal with. I thought about the $800 I'd stolen from Grandma's safe, the rent I'd paid, the tires, the groceries. Shame burned through me hot and sick. So what happens now? I asked. Grandma's dead. She can't solve Mom's problem anymore. What does Mom do? Carol was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into the freezer and pulled out the plastic bin with all the notebooks, set it on the floor between us. Your grandmother trained me, she said slowly. Taught me everything she knew. The planning, the logistics, the contacts. I never did the actual work myself. That wasn't my role. But I know how it's done. I know people who can do it. Are you saying you're going to finish the job? I'm saying I could. Carol looked at me steadily. If I had help. Help from who? From you. The words hung in the air between us. I stared at my aunt like she'd just grown a second head. You want me to help you kill someone? I want you to help me protect your mother. Carol's voice was patient again. Calm. Reasonable. Like she was asking me to help her move furniture. Warren Foley is not going to stop. He's obsessed. He's been obsessed with your father his whole life. Jealous. Bitter. And now that your father's dead, he's taking all of that out on your mother. He'll bleed her dry and then he'll turn her into the police anyway just for the satisfaction of watching her suffer. You don't know that. I know men like him. Carol's voice was cold. I've been dealing with men like him for 30 years. They don't stop until they're stopped. That's why your grandmother's business existed in the first place. This is crazy. I pushed myself off the wall. Started pacing. I can't. This isn't something I can just decide in a garage conversation. You're asking me to help commit murder. I'm asking you to help save your mother. Carol watched me pace. The same mother who raised you alone for 10 years after your father became too dangerous to live with. The same mother who worked 2 jobs to pay for your school clothes. Who drove you to every practice and every game and every recital even when she was exhausted. Who has been suffering in silence for months because she didn't want to add to your stress. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. Carol picked up the bin of notebooks, held it against her chest. But fair doesn't keep people alive. Fair doesn't stop monsters. Fair is a concept people believe in when they've never had to fight for their survival. I stopped pacing. Stood in the middle of the garage, surrounded by Grandma's old garden tools and holiday decorations and the smell of defrosting meat. Everything looked the same as it always had. But nothing would ever be the same again. If I say no, I said carefully, what happens? Then I handle it myself, without your help. Carol shrugged. It will be harder, riskier, more likely to go wrong. But I'll do it because your mother is my sister, and I will not let some bitter, hateful man destroy her life. And the notebooks? They get burned either way. That's not negotiable. But whether your mother's problem gets solved cleanly or messily depends on you. How? How does it depend on me? Carol set the bin down on Grandma's old workbench, started pulling out notebooks, stacking them in piles. Warren lives alone, she said without looking at me. Divorced. No children. Works from home as some kind of financial consultant. He has cameras on his property but no alarm system. He drinks. Heavily. Usually starts around 6 in the evening and passes out by midnight. How do you know all this? Because I've been watching him for 2 months. Carol glanced at me. Your grandmother took the job in January. I've been doing the groundwork ever since, waiting for her to give me the go-ahead, but she got worse before she could. So you've just been stalking my uncle? I've been gathering intelligence. Carol finished stacking the notebooks. 12 piles, all of them thick, all of them full of names and dates and dollar amounts. Warren leaves his back door unlocked when he's drinking. Habit from when he was married. His ex-wife used to come home late, and he didn't want to get up to let her in. He never broke the habit after she left. What are you planning? Carol reached into the last notebook, pulled out a small plastic bag. Inside was a collection of pills, white and round and identical. Oxycodone, she said, ground up fine, mixed into a bottle of whiskey, puts a person to sleep, then keeps putting them to sleep until they don't wake up. She turned the bag over in her hands. Looks like an overdose. Accidental. Tragic. Happens all the time to lonely alcoholic men in their 50s. Jesus Christ. The only problem, Carol continued like I hadn't spoken, is delivery. Getting into his house. Getting the whiskey into his hand. Getting out without being seen. Your grandmother was going to have one of her contacts do it. Someone with experience. But that contact passed away last month. Heart attack. 78 years old. So, find someone else. There is no one else. Carol set the bag of pills down on the workbench. Not anyone I trust. Not anymore. The people your grandmother worked with are dead or retired or too old to be reliable. The business really did die with her. Then don't do it. I heard the desperation in my own voice. Just let it go. Find another way. Get Mom a good lawyer. Fight the blackmail, legally. With what money? Carol turned to face me fully. Your mother is broke. The legal battle over your father's estate has cost her everything she had left after paying Warren off. She can't afford a lawyer. She can barely afford groceries. And Warren knows it. He's counting on it. He's going to crush her. I can help. I can get a better job. Send her money. You stole $800 from your dying grandmother because you couldn't pay rent. Carol said it without judgment. Just a statement of fact. You're not in a position to help anyone financially. Neither is anyone else in this family. I flinched. How did you know about that? I know everything that happens in this family. Carol picked up the bag of pills again. That's my job. That's always been my job. Watching, knowing, protecting. She looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. The $800 doesn't matter. I don't care about it. Your grandmother wouldn't have cared about it either. She left that money in the safe specifically for whoever needed it most. She would have wanted you to have it. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. I'm not asking you to do anything terrible, Carol said. I'm asking you to help me with logistics, planning, maybe some driving. The actual work, the part you're scared of. I'll handle that myself. You? You're going to… I couldn't say the words. I've never done it before, Carol admitted, but I've planned enough of them. I know the theory. And this one is simple. As simple as these things get. Walk in. Make sure he drinks the whiskey. Walk out. Wait. And if something goes wrong, then something goes wrong and we deal with it. Carol shrugged. But nothing is going to go wrong. Warren doesn't know I exist. Doesn't know anyone is watching him. He has no reason to be suspicious. He'll drink the whiskey because that's what he does every night. And then he'll go to sleep. And then your mother will finally be free. I thought about my mom. The tired look she always had. The way she flinched at loud noises. The long sleeves in summer. The ribs that wouldn't heal right after Christmas. I thought about my dad. The eulogy I'd given. The lies I'd told without knowing they were lies. I thought about the $800 in my pocket. The groceries. The tires. The rent. And I thought about Warren. A man I barely knew. A man who was systematically destroying my mother's life because he couldn't let go of whatever twisted thing he'd felt about his dead brother. What exactly would I have to do? I asked. Carol's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. Some tension released. Come to dinner tomorrow night, she said. Your mother's house. 6 o'clock. We'll talk more then. Mom will be there? No. She's working late. It'll just be us. Carol picked up the bin of notebooks and tucked it under her arm. Bring the key to this house. And don't tell anyone about this conversation. Not your mother. Not your friends. Not anyone. What about the rest of the notebooks? The ones in the freezer? I'll come back for them tonight. They'll be destroyed by morning. Carol started walking toward the door that led back into the house. You should go home, get some sleep, process what you've learned, and then decide what kind of person you want to be. She paused at the doorway, turned back to look at me one more time. Your grandmother loved you, she said. She thought you were special. That's why she left you the key to this house. That's why she made sure the safe was open when you came to check on things. She wanted you to find it, wanted you to know the truth. Why? Because she knew you'd understand. Carol's voice was soft now, almost gentle. She knew you'd see that the world isn't black and white, that sometimes good people have to do bad things to protect the ones they love. She believed in you, more than she believed in anyone else in this family. Then she was gone. The door closed behind her, and I was alone in the garage with the defrosting freezer and the smell of old meat and 1,000 questions I didn't have answers to. I stood there for maybe 10 minutes, not thinking about anything really, just existing. Then, I walked to my car and drove home. I didn't sleep that night, not even close. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since that day in Grandma's garage. 2 weeks since Carol told me the truth about my family. 2 weeks since I agreed to help her kill my Uncle Warren. I need to get this down somewhere. Write it out. Make sense of what's happened since then, because honestly, I'm not sure I believe any of it myself, and I was there. The dinner at Mom's house happened exactly like Carol said it would. Mom was working late at the hospital where she does administrative stuff. Carol was already there when I showed up. She had a folder spread out on the dining room table. Maps, schedules, photos. Warren's house looked nice in the pictures. A 2-story craftsman-style thing with a big yard and a privacy fence. The kind of place you'd drive past and think whoever lives there has their life together. Carol walked me through everything. Warren's routine, his drinking schedule, the unlocked back door, the camera placement, the blind spots. She'd been watching him for so long, she knew what time he went to the bathroom every night. It was creepy and impressive at the same time. The window is Saturday, she said. He has grocery delivery in the afternoon. Always orders the same thing, including a case of bourbon. He'll be drinking by 6 and unconscious by midnight. And you're just gonna walk in and poison his bottle? Not his bottle, the new one. Carol pulled out another photo. This one showed a case of Maker's Mark on Warren's front porch. The delivery driver leaves it outside. Warren doesn't bring it in until after dark because he doesn't want his neighbors to see how much he drinks. I'll intercept it. Swap one of the bottles. Put the case back. Won't he notice? Notice what? It's sealed. Or it will look sealed. Carol slid another photo across the table. This one showed a small device that looked like a tiny heat gun. Shrink wrap. I practiced on 6 bottles. You can't tell the difference. I picked up the device. Turned it over in my hands. It was surprisingly light. Where did you learn how to do this stuff? Your grandmother. Carol took the device back. Packed it into a small bag along with the other supplies. She taught me everything. Said I had the right temperament for it. Cool head. Attention to detail. No attachment to sentiment when it gets in the way of what needs to be done. That's a weird compliment. It wasn't a compliment. Just an observation. Carol zipped the bag closed. Your role is simple. You drive. You park where I tell you. You keep the car running. When I come back, you drive away. That's it? That's it? That's it. You don't even have to see Warren. Don't have to go near his house. Just sit in the car and wait. It sounded so simple when she said it. Like, we were planning a grocery run instead of a murder. And afterwards? I asked. What happens when he's found? He lives alone. Could be days before anyone notices. Maybe even a week. When they do find him, they'll see a lonely alcoholic who overdosed on pain pills he probably got illegally. Happens all the time. No one will investigate too hard. But what about Mom? Won't the police talk to her? Ask questions? Why would they? Carol gave me a look like I was being stupid. Warren's been estranged from your family for years. He and your father hadn't spoken in over a decade before your father's accident. Your mother barely knew him. There's no connection. No motive. Except for the blackmail. There's no evidence of the blackmail. Carol's voice went hard. Your mother paid him in cash. No paper trail, no texts, no emails. Warren was smart about that. Made sure nothing could be traced. What about the letters he sent her? I burned them. All of them. Last week, Carol stood up and started putting the folder back together. Your mother didn't want to keep them, but she was afraid to destroy evidence. I wasn't afraid. Jesus. I rubbed my face with both hands. You've really thought of everything. That's the job. Thinking of everything. Carol finished packing up and set the bag by the front door. Saturday at 5. I'll text you an address. Park there. Wait for me. Don't be late. She left before Mom got home from work. I sat at the dining room table for another hour just staring at the wall. When Mom finally walked in, she looked tired. More tired than I'd ever seen her. There were dark circles under her eyes and her shoulders were slumped forward like she was carrying something heavy. You're still here. She seemed surprised. I thought Carol was coming for dinner. She did. She left already. I stood up and hugged her. She felt thin in my arms. Fragile. Like if I squeezed too hard, she might break. Mom, are you okay? I'm fine. She pulled back and forced a smile. Just tired. Long shift. You know how it is. I wanted to ask her about Warren. About the blackmail. About everything. But Carol's voice was in my head. Don't tell anyone about this conversation. You should get some sleep, I said instead. I will. I drove home feeling like the worst person on the planet. Saturday came faster than I wanted it to. I got Carol's text at 4:30. An address about 10 minutes from Warren's neighborhood. A strip mall parking lot next to a closed furniture store. I parked where she told me. A back corner away from the streetlights. No other cars nearby. I kept the engine running and the headlights off and watched the clock on my dashboard count down the minutes. Carol appeared at 6:15, walking out of the shadows behind the furniture store like she'd materialized from thin air. She was wearing all black. Dark pants, dark jacket, dark gloves. Even her hair was hidden under a black beanie. She got in the passenger seat without saying anything, pulled the door closed quietly, then sat there for a moment with her eyes closed. It's done, she said finally. Already? You were only gone for, I did the math, 20 minutes? I told you it was simple. Carol opened her eyes. The delivery was already there. He hadn't brought it inside yet. I swapped the bottle, put the case back, left. That's it? That's it? She reached up and pulled off the beanie. Her hair was flat and sweaty underneath. Now we wait. For how long? A few hours. Maybe until morning. Carol buckled her seatbelt. Drive to the address I'm about to give you. A diner about 30 miles from here. We eat dinner. We establish an alibi. We act normal. An alibi? Just in case. Carol pulled out her phone and typed something. Nobody's going to ask, but if they do, we were having dinner together. Aunt and nephew. Catching up. Totally innocent. My phone buzzed with the address. I put the car in gear and pulled out of the parking lot. The diner was called Rosie's, and it looked like it hadn't been updated since 1975. Vinyl booths with duct tape on the seats. Laminated menus with pictures of food that didn't look anything like what actually arrived. Coffee that tasted like motor oil. We sat there for 3 hours. Carol ordered a burger. I ordered a salad I couldn't eat. We talked about nothing. The weather. Some movie she'd seen recently. Her neighbor's dog that kept getting into her garbage. Normal conversation. Normal voices. Normal smiles. Meanwhile, all I could think about was Warren Foley sitting in his house pouring himself a drink from a bottle that was going to kill him. Around 9:30, Carol's phone buzzed. She looked at it. Then she looked at me. It's time to go, she said. What happened? Nothing yet. But Warren's lights went off about 10 minutes ago. Carol pulled out some cash and left it on the table. That means he's drinking in the dark. Means he'll be unconscious soon. How do you know his lights went off? Carol just looked at me. Then she got up and walked to the door. She had cameras. Of course she had cameras. I shouldn't have been surprised. We drove back to my apartment in silence. Carol had me drop her off at her car, which was parked in a grocery store lot about a mile away. Before she got out, she put her hand on my arm. You did good, she said. Your grandmother would be proud. I didn't do anything. You showed up. You stayed calm. You followed instructions. Carol squeezed my arm. That's more than most people can manage in a situation like this. What happens now? Now we go home. We sleep. We wait for news. Carol opened the door and stepped out into the parking lot. I'll call you when it's over. Then she was gone. Just like that. Disappeared into the darkness like she'd never been there at all. I went home and stared at the ceiling until 3 in the morning. Then I fell into a restless sleep, full of dreams I couldn't remember when I woke up. The news came 2 days later. I was at work when Mom called. Her voice was weird. Not sad exactly, but weird. Warren's dead, she said. What? I tried to sound surprised. I don't think I did a very good job. What happened? They found him this morning. His cleaning lady. He'd been dead for a couple days, apparently. Mom paused. They think it was an overdose. Pills and alcohol. That's terrible. The words felt thick and wrong in my mouth. Are you okay? I'm fine. Mom's voice was steady. Too steady. He wasn't, we weren't close. I barely knew him, really. I just thought you should know. Yeah, thanks for telling me. There was a long silence on the line. Then Mom said something that made my blood run cold. The funeral is Saturday. I think we should go. What? Why? Because he was your father's brother. Because it would look strange if we didn't. Mom's voice had an edge to it now. Because families show up for each other, even families that aren't close. Mom, Saturday at 11. The Lutheran Church on Maple Street. I'll pick you up at 10:30. She hung up before I could argue. I sat at my desk for a long time after that call, staring at nothing, thinking about the funeral, about sitting in a church mourning a man I'd helped kill, about looking his friends and family in the eye and pretending to be sad. Carol called that night. I heard about the funeral, she said. You need to go. Why? Because your mother is right. It would look strange if you didn't. Carol's voice was calm, businesslike. You show up. You look sad. You say the right things. Then you leave. Simple. Simple. I laughed. It came out wrong. None of this is simple. It's simpler than the alternative. Carol paused. The police aren't investigating. They found the pills in his medicine cabinet, found the empty bottle of bourbon. It's an open and shut case of accidental overdose. No one suspects anything. What if they do eventually? What if something comes up? Nothing is going to come up. Carol's voice went hard. Because there's nothing to find. No evidence. No witnesses. No connection. Just a sad, lonely man who drank too much and took too many pills. It happens every day. I killed someone. The words came out before I could stop them. I helped you kill someone. You helped me protect your mother. Carol said it firmly. That's what family does. That's what your grandmother did for 50 years. That's what I've been doing for 30. And now that's what you're doing too. I didn't sign up for this. Yes, you did. Carol's voice was patient. The moment you walked into that garage, the moment you read those notebooks, the moment you decided to stay instead of running away, you signed up. What if I change my mind? What if I go to the police? Carol was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, colder. Then you'll be confessing to conspiracy to commit murder. You'll go to prison. Your mother will go to prison. I'll go to prison. And everything your grandmother built over 50 years will be destroyed. So what? I'm just supposed to live with this forever? Yes, Carol said it simply. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. Live with it. Move forward. Build your life. Take care of your mother. And never talk about this again. The line went dead. I went to the funeral on Saturday. Mom picked me up in her ancient Toyota and we drove to the church in silence. There were maybe 30 people there. Most of them looked old. Colleagues, probably. Maybe some neighbors. Warren's ex-wife was there. A thin woman with gray hair and angry eyes. She didn't cry during the service. Just sat in the front row, staring straight ahead like she was waiting for something. I sat next to Mom in the back, listened to a minister who clearly didn't know Warren say generic things about loss and heaven and peace. Watched people I didn't know dab their eyes with tissues. When it was over, Mom took my hand and squeezed it. Just once. Then she got up and walked out without talking to anyone. We got in the car and drove away. Neither of us said anything for the first 10 minutes. Then Mom spoke. It's over, she said quietly. It's finally over. I glanced at her. Her face was wet with tears, but she was smiling. Mom, don't. She held up one hand. Don't say anything. Don't ask anything. Just let it be over. So I did. I let it be over. Or at least I tried. But here's the thing about killing someone. Even when it's justified. Even when the person deserved it. Even when you barely did anything at all and someone else did the actual work. You still know. Every morning when you wake up. Every night when you close your eyes. Every quiet moment when your brain doesn't have anything else to focus on. You know what you did. And you have to live with that knowledge forever. I've been trying to figure out if I'm okay with it. 2 weeks later, and I still don't have an answer. Warren was a bad person. He was hurting my mother. He would have destroyed her life if he'd been allowed to continue. But he was also a person, with a life, with people who loved him, with memories and experiences and years of existence that are just gone now because Carol slipped some pills into a bottle of bourbon. Is that justice? Is that murder? Is there even a difference? I don't know. All I know is that my grandmother spent 50 years solving problems for people who had no other options. All I know is that my aunt has been carrying on that legacy since before I was born. All I know is that my mother is free now. Finally free from a cycle of violence that started when she married my father and didn't end until Warren stopped breathing. And all I know is that I'm part of this family now. Really part of it. Not just the nephew who shows up for holidays and borrows money when he's broke, but part of the real family. The one that operates in shadows. The one that does the things no one else is willing to do. Carol called me yesterday. She wants to meet again. Says there's more we need to discuss. I'm not sure I want to know what that means, but I'm going to find out. Update 2. 3 months have passed since Warren's funeral. 3 months since I became officially involved in the family business. 3 months that feel like 3 years. I need to write this down because things have gotten complicated and I'm starting to worry that I'm in over my head. The meeting with Carol wasn't what I expected. I thought she wanted to talk about Warren, tie up loose ends, make sure I wasn't going to do anything stupid. Instead, she took me to Grandma's house. The place had been empty since Carol cleared out the notebooks. Nobody wanted to deal with it. Mom couldn't bring herself to sort through Grandma's stuff, and Carol was too busy with whatever Carol does. So, it just sat there. This empty house full of memories and secrets. Carol had a key. We walked through the front door and she led me straight to the basement. A place I'd only been maybe twice in my whole life. Grandma always said it was full of old furniture and Christmas decorations. Not worth exploring. She lied. Behind a shelf of dusty boxes, Carol pushed open a door I'd never noticed before. It led to another room. A room with no windows. A room with concrete walls and a drain in the floor. "This is where your grandmother worked," Carol said. I stared at the space. It was clean. Too clean. No dust. No cobwebs. Nothing except a metal table in the center and some cabinets along the wall. Worked? My voice came out weird. You mean this is where she... Most of the time, she didn't do the work herself. Carol walked to the cabinets and opened one. Inside were tools. Medical-looking things. Scalpels and saws and instruments I couldn't identify. But sometimes clients wanted proof. Wanted to watch. Wanted to be sure. Jesus Christ. Your grandmother wasn't sentimental about it. Carol closed the cabinet. She saw it as a job. A necessary service. People came to her with problems and she solved them. The method was just mechanics. Why are you showing me this? Carol turned to face me. Her expression was unreadable. Because the business didn't die with your grandmother, she said. And I can't run it alone anymore. What does that mean? It means I'm getting old. Carol leaned against the metal table. I'm 58. I have arthritis in my hands and a knee that needs replacing. The work I used to do, the watching, the planning, the logistics, I can still do some of it. But not all of it. Not by myself. So hire someone. This isn't the kind of job you post on Indeed. Carol's voice was dry. You need people you can trust. People who understand what's at stake. People who are already part of this, whether they wanted to be or not. You mean me? I mean you. I backed up until I hit the concrete wall. No, absolutely not. I helped you once. With Warren. That was supposed to be it. There is no it with this. Carol pushed herself off the table and walked toward me. You're already involved. You've already crossed the line. There's no going back to who you were before you read those notebooks. I can try. Can you? Carol stopped a few feet away. Can you go back to your regular life and pretend none of this happened? Pretend you don't know what you know? Pretend your grandmother wasn't who she was? I opened my mouth. What exactly would I be doing? I heard myself ask. Carol smiled. Just a little. Like she'd been waiting for that question. The same thing I did when I started. Research, surveillance, information gathering. She gestured around the basement. Not this. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But the other parts. The parts that make the work possible. And if I say no, then you say no. And I find another way. Carol shrugged. But I'm giving you the chance to be part of something. To continue what your grandmother started. To help people who have no one else to turn to. You're making it sound noble. It is noble. Carol's voice hardened. Do you think your grandmother was a monster? Some psychopath who killed for pleasure? She saved hundreds of lives. Women like your mother. Children being hurt by parents who should have protected them. Whistleblowers being silenced by corporations. People being destroyed by systems that were supposed to help them. She also charged money for it. She also had to eat. Had to keep the lights on. Had to raise 2 daughters. Carol shook her head. The money wasn't the point. The money was just how it worked. People paid what they could. Sometimes that was $50,000. Sometimes it was $200 and a promise to volunteer at the shelter downtown. I thought about my mom. About the long sleeves and the broken ribs. About the way she flinched when my dad raised his voice. I thought about Warren and his threatening letters. About the life insurance money he was trying to steal. About what would have happened if Carol hadn't intervened. One job, I said finally. I'll do one job with you. See what it's like. Carol nodded like this was exactly what she'd expected. There's a woman, she said. Came to me 3 weeks ago. Her name is Beatrice. She's 64 years old and her son has been stealing from her for years. Draining her accounts. Forging her signature. Putting her name on debts she never agreed to. Can't she go to the police? She tried. They said it was a civil matter. Family dispute. Carol's voice was bitter. Meanwhile, her son is about to put her house in foreclosure. The house she's lived in for 40 years. The house where she raised him and his 3 siblings. So what? We kill her son? God, no. Carol looked horrified. This isn't about killing. Not every problem needs that solution. Most don't actually. Your grandmother knew that. She had a whole spectrum of options depending on the situation. Then what? Carol walked back to the cabinets and pulled out a folder. Inside were photos and documents. A man in his 40s with a weak chin and calculating eyes. Bank statements showing money moving between accounts. Property records with signatures that didn't quite match. Terrence Holloway, Carol said. Beatrice's son, real estate developer, has 3 ex-wives and 4 children he doesn't pay support for. Makes about $200,000 a year, but lives like he makes 5 times that. Sounds like a piece of work. He's about to get a lot worse. Carol handed me the folder. In 2 weeks, he's closing on a property deal worth $3 million, using his mother's house as collateral without her knowledge. Once that deal closes, he'll pay off his debts and disappear to Florida. Leave his mother with nothing. What do we do? We make sure the deal doesn't close. Carol smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Terrence has secrets, affairs, embezzlement from a previous employer, tax fraud, the kind of secrets that make business partners very nervous. We expose him, we create pressure, make him paranoid, make him make mistakes. Carol took the folder back, and while he's distracted, we help Beatrice get her affairs in order, move her assets somewhere her son can't touch them, put her house in a trust he can't access, protect her. That's not murder. No, it's not. Carol closed the folder. I told you. Most problems don't need that solution. Most problems just need someone who knows how to apply the right pressure in the right places. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Sabotaging some sleazy real estate guy who was robbing his own mother wasn't the same as poisoning Warren. It wasn't even in the same universe. Okay, I said. Tell me what to do. That was 3 months ago. The Terrence job went smoothly. Better than smoothly, actually. Carol had me watch his office for a week, document his comings and goings, note who he met with and when. Then she had me set up fake email accounts, send anonymous tips to his business partners, attach evidence of his past embezzlement that Carol had somehow acquired. Within a month, the property deal fell apart. His partners pulled out. His creditors started asking questions. And someone I still don't know who tipped off the IRS about some irregularities in his tax returns. Terrence didn't go to prison. Not yet anyway. But he definitely wasn't in a position to foreclose on his mother's house anymore. He was too busy trying to keep his own life from falling apart. Beatrice sent Carol a thank you card. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a photo of her standing in front of her house. She was smiling. Really smiling. Like someone who'd just been saved from drowning. I kept that photo. Put it in a drawer in my apartment where I look at it sometimes when I'm feeling confused about what we're doing. After Terrence, there was another job. A woman whose ex-husband had kidnapped their child during a custody dispute. The police were useless. The courts were slow. The kid had been gone for 2 months and nobody seemed to care. Carol found him in 3 weeks. Tracked the father to a cabin in rural Michigan. We didn't kill him. Didn't even hurt him. Just gathered enough evidence to prove he'd violated the custody agreement and handed it to the right people. The mother got her daughter back. The father got arrested. And Carol got another thank you card for her collection. I've done 6 jobs now. None of them have involved killing. Most of them haven't even involved breaking any serious laws. Just surveillance, research, pressure applied in the right places. But I know that's not all there is. Carol has other clients, other jobs, the kind she doesn't talk about in detail. The kind where thank you cards don't arrive in the mail because there's nobody left to send them. Last week, she asked me to drive her somewhere. A warehouse district on the edge of the city. She went inside and came out 45 minutes later looking tired. What was that? I asked. Consultation, she said. With who? With people who solve problems I can't solve. Carol buckled her seatbelt. Drive. I drove. I didn't ask any more questions, but I know what happened in that warehouse. I know what Carol was consulting about. And I know that sooner or later she's going to ask me to be part of it. The question is what I'm going to say when she does. Yesterday, Mom called. She sounded good. Better than she's sounded in years. She's dating someone. A guy from her church named Wilson. He seems nice. Boring but nice. The kind of guy who would never raise his hand to anyone. I'm happy, she told me. For the first time in a long time, I'm actually happy. I wanted to tell her why. Wanted to explain that she was happy because Warren wasn't sending threatening letters anymore. Because Dad wasn't around to hurt her. Because the women in our family had spent generations making sure that people like her could be happy even when the world was trying to crush them. But I didn't say any of that. I just told her I was glad and asked if Wilson liked baseball. He does. We're going to a game next week. Mom and Wilson and me. Like a normal family doing normal things. I wonder if Grandma ever felt this way. This disconnect between the life people see and the life that's actually happening underneath. This constant juggling of identities and secrets. Carol says you get used to it. Says eventually the 2 lives start to feel like one. Says the guilt fades and the purpose takes over. I'm not sure I believe her. But I'm still here. Still driving her to meetings. Still watching people who don't know they're being watched. Still learning the business that my grandmother built and my aunt carries on. Still deciding what kind of person I want to be. Update 3. It's been 11 months since Grandma died. Almost a year since I found those notebooks in the freezer. Since Carol told me the truth about my family. Since everything changed. I'm writing this from a motel room 6 hours from home. There's blood on my shirt that isn't mine. My hands are still shaking. And I need to get this down before I lose my nerve. The job was supposed to be simple. A man named Victor Staubach, 62 years old. Owned a chain of nursing homes across 3 states. Made millions cutting corners on care while families paid premium prices for services their loved ones never received. Carol had been watching him for months. Gathering evidence. Building a case. The plan was the same as always. Pressure. Exposure. Force him to sell his businesses and compensate the families he'd hurt. But then we found out about the other thing. The nursing homes were a front. Victor was using them to traffic drugs. Not just any drugs. Fentanyl. Coming in through medical supply shipments and going out through a network of distributors who operated out of his facilities. This changes things, Carol said when she showed me the evidence. We can't just pressure him. We can't just expose him. He's connected to people who won't let that happen. What people? The kind of people who make problems disappear permanently. Carol looked tired. Older than I'd ever seen her. The kind of people your grandmother spent her whole career avoiding. So what do we do? Carol was quiet for a long time. Then she opened a drawer in her desk and pulled out a folder. Thin. Just a few pages. But I knew what it meant. We solved the problem, she said. I should have said no. Should have walked away. Should have told her this was too big, too dangerous, too far beyond anything I'd ever agreed to. But I didn't. I said yes. The plan was careful, thorough, the way all of Carol's plans are. Victor had a routine. Every Thursday night he drove to a cabin in the mountains. Alone. No security, no witnesses. Just him and a satellite phone and whatever business he conducted in private. We would be waiting. I drove. Carol sat in the passenger seat with a bag in her lap. Inside were the tools of her trade. Things I'd seen but never touched. Things I tried not to think about too closely. The cabin was isolated, miles from the nearest neighbor. Perfect for what Victor did there. Perfect for what we were about to do. We got there at sunset and waited in the trees. Victor's car arrived at 8:15, right on schedule. He was alone, just like Carol said he'd be. We watched him go inside, watched the lights turn on, watched him pour himself a drink and sit down in front of the fireplace. Now, Carol said. We moved through the darkness toward the cabin. Carol had a key she'd somehow acquired. The lock clicked open without a sound. Victor was still sitting by the fire when we walked into the room. He looked up, saw us, and his face went through about 6 different expressions in 2 seconds before settling on something like resignation. I wondered when someone would come, he said. Carol didn't respond, just pulled a gun from her bag and pointed it at his chest. You know why we're here, she said. I have money. In the safe. Behind the painting. Victor gestured with his drink. Take whatever you want. We don't want your money. Then what? Victor's eyes moved between us. Calculating. Who sent you? The Esposito family? The Russians? That little prick from Miami who thinks he can move into my territory? Nobody sent us. Carol's voice was ice. We're here for the families. What families? The ones whose parents died in your facilities while you were too busy running drugs to notice. The ones who paid for care their loved ones never received. The ones who trusted you. Carol took a step closer. The ones you destroyed. Something shifted in Victor's expression. The calculating look faded, replaced by something darker. Your independence, he said slowly. Not connected to anyone. Just some crusaders with a death wish. Something like that. Victor laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. Do you have any idea what you've done? Coming here? Confronting me? The people I work with will find you. Both of you. And what they'll do to you will make anything I've done look like charity work. They won't find us. You think because you're careful they won't track you down? Victor shook his head. There are cameras everywhere. Traffic systems. Cell towers. Digital breadcrumbs. You don't even know you're leaving. They have people who specialize in finding people who don't want to be found. I know. Carol smiled. I've been doing this for 30 years. My mother did it for 50 before that. We've never been found. Victor's expression flickered. Just for a second, but I saw it. Fear. What do you want? He asked. I want you to understand why this is happening. Carol raised the gun. I want you to know that this isn't random. Isn't bad luck. This is justice for every person you hurt. Every family you destroyed. Every life you ended for profit. You can't. The gunshot was louder than I expected. Even though I knew it was coming. Even though I'd prepared myself. Victor slumped back in his chair. A red stain spread across his chest. He tried to say something, but only blood came out. Carol walked closer, stood over him, watched the light fade from his eyes. It's done, she said quietly. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, could barely breathe. I'd known this was going to happen, had agreed to it, had driven here specifically for this moment. But seeing it, actually being in the room when it happened, that was different. We need to go, Carol said. Now. She was already moving, wiping down surfaces, collecting shell casings, erasing any trace that we'd ever been here. I followed her instructions mechanically, helped clean, helped move, helped make it look like Victor had died alone. A heart attack maybe, or a stroke, something natural. We were out of the cabin in 20 minutes, back in the car, driving away into the darkness. Neither of us spoke for the first hour. Then Carol reached over and put her hand on my arm. You did well, she said. I didn't do anything. You were there. You stayed calm. You helped. Carol squeezed my arm. That's more than most people could manage. I feel sick. That's normal. Carol's voice was gentle now. The first time is always the hardest. Your grandmother threw up for 2 days after her first job. I didn't eat for a week after mine. Does it get easier? Carol was quiet for a moment. No, she said finally. It doesn't get easier. You just learn to carry it better. We drove for 6 more hours. Stopped at this motel under fake names. Paid cash. Carol is in the room next door. Probably sleeping. Or staring at the ceiling. Or doing whatever she does after nights like this. I can't sleep, can't stop replaying what happened. Victor's face, the sound of the gun, the way the blood spread across his shirt. I keep telling myself he deserved it, that he was a monster, that the world is better without him. And maybe that's true, but it doesn't change what I did, what I was part of, what I've become. My grandmother built this business to help people, to save people who couldn't save themselves. That's what Carol says. That's what she believes. But sitting here in this motel room with blood on my shirt and Victor's dead eyes burned into my memory, I'm not sure I believe it anymore. I think maybe we're just killers. Killers with good excuses. Killers with justifications and rationalizations and thank you cards from the people we help. But killers all the same. The sun is coming up now. Carol will knock on my door soon. We'll get back in the car, drive home, return to our regular lives, pretend this night never happened. And then eventually there will be another job, another problem, another person who needs to be solved. And I'll have to decide all over again what kind of person I want to be. My grandmother made that choice 50 years ago. Carol made it 30 years ago. My mother made it when she asked for help with Warren.